Welcome in, everybody. You are now listening to yet another episode of the Peace of My Mind podcast. I am your host, J. Scott Gatsby, and today we are recording in front of one of the only murals in Salemburg, North Carolina, home of the KKK Academy. And in this episode, we will be discussing consciousness in hip hop, social movements, and psychology. We will also be describing and defining what it means to be conscious in today, as well as exploring some buzzwords that popular news outlets use to describe consciousness. So, wherever you are and whatever you're doing, I invite you to join me for today's much needed conversation. Let's begin. I feel like a great place for us to start this discussion is by defining what consciousness is. Consciousness, in the psychological sense, is an individual's subjective awareness of their own thoughts, feelings, memories, sensations, and environment. Today, however, we will be exploring its meaning as it relates to both modern society and my first musical love, hip hop. In terms of how the word woke has been effectively kidnapped from Black culture and transformed into a running gag by popular news outlets, consciousness is also defined as the awareness of one's society and social position within it, encompassing both individual and collective understanding of social dynamics, issues, and their own role. Consciousness in this context is not a new concept. In fact, there have been social movements based on this definition of consciousness as far back as the Age of Enlightenment in the 17th century. Social movements of consciousness are vitally important because they fundamentally challenge existing power structures and social norms by advocating for psychological and intellectual liberation. This advocacy for consciousness is the very spark that inspires lasting social and political change. Oftentimes, the quality of a system of oppression is based on if its victims are able to realize how they contribute to its success with their beliefs and their behaviors. In capitalism, we are socially conditioned to consume media and products to keep us distracted from the fact that the ruling class is exploiting the poor and working class for everything they are physically, mentally, emotionally, and financially in order to ensure high profit margins for themselves and their companies. The other side of the system is making sure that this process is framed in a way so that a significant percentage of the poor and the working class see nothing wrong with this exploitation. And not only that, they are socially conditioned into believing that the only way to amass a similar amount of wealth is to exploit others in the way that they have been exploited themselves. This belief amongst the victims of capitalism ensures that the cycle of exploitation continues on to the next generation. It is a bit maddening to know that we can observe people in our society today that genuinely think like this, but it is true. And the primary methods that the bourgeoisie uses to lead people to this belief is by way of media, specifically social media and music. The internet is arguably one of mankind's greatest inventions because it allows for the instantaneous connections between people around the globe, as well as the dissemination of thoughts, opinions, news, and information. As human beings, there is no point in our lives where we stop being impressionable. The ruling class takes advantage of this fact by surrounding us with labels, brands, promotions, and content to influence us to buy more things, eat more food, and above all, think less. When televisions became popular enough for there to be at least one in every household, the bourgeoisie became deeply interested in what keeps people's attention on the screen, of which they discovered was comedy, products, sex, violence, and drama. With this new understanding of behavior compounded by the advent of the internet, today we can observe phenomena such as internet and social media addiction. As it pertains to consciousness, the danger of this system of media manipulation is the rising popularity of anti-intellectualism. Remember, one of the foundational motivations of the bourgeoisie's media structure is to systematically get the masses to think less. Why is that, you ask? It's because it's harder to keep smart people in chains than it is to keep dumb people in boxes. Knowledge is true power, and due to this fact, the access and opportunity to it has been limited by the bourgeoisie to ensure that the majority of people will only aspire to earn the exact level of education that is required to earn just enough income to survive rather than pursuing further education or certifications to earn enough to actually live. When limiting the ability for disenfranchised people in marginalized communities to obtain an education became to be insufficient, the bourgeoisie began manipulating popular influences such as music. Specific to this conversation, hip hop. Hip hop was born out of a communal venture in the Bronx, New York, and it was done so to raise funds to afford clothes for the upcoming semester of school. After its birth, however, it grew into the voice of the disenfranchised communities, of which stories, poetry, thoughts, and cautionary tales were shared in an attempt to assist the youth build a better future. To this day, it is the most popular genre in the world and by far the most powerful in influence. To disrupt the positive foundation of hip hop, the bourgeoisie began incentivizing rappers for the sexual objectification of women and the promotion of drug abuse, violence, and luxury goods, with larger visibility and profits in the form of radio play, performance opportunities, and more money in record label negotiations. In a span of less than 30 years, hip hop became the most popular source of vulgarity in media for the global population. Today, we can observe this oversaturation of negative and self-destructive influences in hip hop, of which motivates the youth to not feel a need to be smart, respectful, or conscious in general. In conclusion, consciousness in today's society is truly a battle against anti-intellectualism for the direction of the future. The bourgeoisie, we are ruled by control the structure of the system that exploits our every action and thought, as well as studying our behavior to ensure that the profit margins are at a maximum at all times. Social movements of intellectualism are vitally important to making positive change against its oppression because it motivates us to seek knowledge that will see to us understanding our position in the system and the true path forward. When limiting our access to knowledge isn't enough to stop us, the bourgeoisie will manipulate our popular art and media by influencing the artists with money that they know we cannot live without. The best thing that you can be in this fight is smart. Thank you so much for tuning in for yet another episode of the Peace of My Mind podcast. I appreciate all of you because y'all never fall short for the love that you all have for me. If you do have a little motive spirit, as always, I would deeply appreciate a like if you enjoyed the episode and a comment below to let me know how you feel about the issue. Don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date with the latest episodes and other content. Until next time, stay peaceful with love.